guys, it's Marissa from Little House Living. If you were watching the video before, I'm sorry about that. I had some technical difficulties in the way that I am technically challenged. So hopefully this video is coming across correctly and we can get started on talking about decluttering today. So I was saying before that my husband thinks it's funny that I'm talking about decluttering today because yesterday I spent all day, literally all day, unpacking all of the books that I have. I have carried them from house to house. I've got children's books, I've got chapter books, I've got a lot of nonfiction, not a lot of fiction. I'm not a big fiction reader. So I have all of these books that I've spent unpacking, but the thing about decluttering is that no one is making you declutter. You don't have to declutter things. You don't have to get rid of things that you don't want to get rid of. For me, books is one of those things. I love books. The kids love books. We have, all kinds of books for them to see. I have books that I use for references. I have books that we use for school. Just all kinds of things. I like to borrow books out to people. So books is just one of the things that I keep. That's my one thing. So I don't know, you probably have one thing too. If you do have that one thing that you don't like to declutter, you should comment and make me feel like I'm not so bad, because I think everybody just has that one thing. So I'm just going to share this video in our group so everybody can see it quick. So it looks like it's working now, hopefully. All right. Okay. So like I said, today I want to talk to you about decluttering, cleaning up your home, kind of why you want to declutter. This is still not working for me. This is just not my morning. There we go. Okay, so earlier this week I posted an article and a little bit video on decluttering sentimental items. So sentimental items are the one thing that is hard for a lot of people to think about decluttering, and I ended up getting a lot of negative comments and feedbacks on it. People just saying that, oh well, why do I have to declutter those things if I don't want to? You don't have to declutter those things if you don't want to. I mean, that's the good thing about this is, if you want to declutter your home, you have reasons behind that, and you can go ahead and do that. If you don't want to declutter, you don't have to do that either. If you want to keep something, like I keep my books, you can keep that one thing. There is no one size fits all, and there's no one that needs to tell you, oh, you need to declutter your entire house because that's the only way to live. And if you feel like you want to declutter your entire house, then go ahead and do it. But otherwise, I mean, some things work for some people and some things don't. It's just not for everybody. But one of the questions that I got, I asked if anybody had any questions that they wanted to talk about today when it comes to decluttering. And one of the questions I got is, how do you start? If you haven't decluttered a lot, or if you have a big house and it just feels super overwhelming, where do you start decluttering? So my suggestion is start room by room, unless there's just one place that really bothers you and you want to declutter. You've got this pile right when you come in the door. If that pile really bothers you, start your decluttering right there. Otherwise, if you're just not sure where to start at all, take one room at a time. You have to remember that it took you your entire lifetime to collect all of this clutter so far. It is not going to go away in one day. So it's going to take time. It is going to feel overwhelming at some point. But that's where I would start. Find one room that you think, okay, this is room. Even if it's going to be the easiest room in the house, think, okay, I'm going to declutter my bathroom today. Maybe you don't have very much stuff in your bathroom or something like that. And be like, okay, this is going to be the easiest room for me. And then once you're done with that room, then take the motivation that you got from decluttering that one section to move to a different room and to kind of go all around the house. And then the same thing applies while you're in that specific room decluttering. Don't just walk into the room and think, I'm going to declutter this entire room today. It's not going to happen that way. So go walk into the room that you've decided to declutter and look at one wall or even half of one wall and say, okay, this is the wall and I'm going to work on today. I'm going to work on everything on this wall. And then once that wall is done, move on to the next wall and make your way around the room until you finish decluttering the whole room. You have to take small sections at a time instead of looking at this thing as this big, massive project, because that is the easiest way to get overwhelmed, is to look at it as a whole and think, oh my goodness, I am never going to be able to do this. So that is my tip on how to get started. Just one room at a time, one wall at a time, one section at a time. Break it way down so you don't feel overwhelmed, so you don't feel like there's too much at one time. So then as you're going through each room, or as you're going through each section, you have to ask yourself a couple questions. And the question that I see most often is, ask yourself if you've used it in the last year. I don't ask myself that question because a year is a really long time. So I ask myself, have I used this in the last 6 months? And if I haven't used it in the last 6 months, is it something seasonal? Because, I'm not going to use my winter stuff in the summer, I'm not going to use my summer stuff in the winter. So there's a possibility that it's still useful even though I haven't used it in 6 months. But generally, if it's not a seasonal item and I haven't used it in the last 6 months, I'm probably not going to use it, or I just don't need it. So that's kind of my rule of thumb when I first start digging into a room and deciding if I'm going to declutter. And then if it's something that I maybe have used once in the last 6 months, I'm going to ask myself a couple more questions with that, like, okay, why did I only use this once? Is it something that's really useful to me? And that's my second question that I'm going to go into. First, have I used it recently? And then I have to decide if it's necessary and if it's useful. So, I used to really like mixing bowls. I had a ton of mixing bowls. I had a bunch of the vintage Pyrex bowls and glass bowls and plastic bowls and all kinds of mixing bowls. I don't know why I collected them. I just did. And mixing bowls are useful. We use them every day to make stuff. But did I really need 10 mixing bowls? So when I went through and cleaned out in my kitchen and looked at all those mixing bowls, laid them all out on the floor, I looked at them and thought, have I ever used this many mixing bowls at once? No. I am never going to make anything that requires that I use all 10 of my mixing bowls at the same time, or, however many I had. I may use 2 or 3, maybe even sometimes 4, depending on if I'm making several different recipes or a bunch of different mixes or something like that. That's what's actually useful for me. The rest is just taking up my valuable space in my kitchen. I don't need all those bowls. So then after that, I look at my 10 bowls or however many I had and decide, okay, the most that I've ever used at one time is 4. So I'm going to keep 4 mixing bowls. And then I decided, which ones are my favorite? Which ones are the ones that I grab all the time to use? And from there, it's pretty easy to clean out, okay, I never used the plastic ones. They just went in the giveaway pile. And I kept the ones that I use the most, which for me happen to be, the big vintage Pyrex ones. Those are my favorite mixing bowls. So that's kind of my process when it comes to decluttering, is ask myself when the last time I used something was, and then if it's necessary or if it's useful, like, why am I keeping this item? Is it possible for me to use this? Can I use this at the same time as something else? Or is it just sitting here taking up all this valuable space in my house? So that's kind of my process. I know that everybody has a different mental process that they go through, so make sure that you leave yours in the comments so people that are reading the comments and scrolling through can see the different processes. Maybe something works for someone else, but that's kind of my basic train of thought. So the other question that I got was, how do you declutter clothes? Clothes is I don't know if we always think about clothes being clutter, but they take up such a huge part of our lives. We have this big section in our house devoted to clothing, not just our clothing, but our kids' clothing, and there's tops, and there's bottoms, and there's pajamas, and there's socks and just so many different things. And then if we have a ton of clothing, we're doing a ton of laundry because we're always finding a piece of clothes here and there, and I don't know what it is, but kids can never get it in the laundry basket. It's around the laundry basket, and it's, you know, in a corner of the room or shoved in the closet. There's clothes everywhere when we have so many clothes. So decluttering clothes is a good place, and maybe that's a good place for you to start too, because it's kind of a section, a small area that you can start with. So clothing, I kind of look at it at the same way. When was the last time I wore this piece? Does this piece even fit me? Or is this piece useful? So, you know, when was the last time I wore something? We have seasonal clothes here, so I'm going to wear different things in the winter than I am in the summer. And I pull them, most of my pieces kind of go through all seasons, because generally I wear like a tank top all year round, and in the summer I wear just the tank top, and in the winter I wear it with some kind of sweater or something like that. So I kind of have pieces that are versatile and go all year round, but I do have some pieces that are seasonal, you know, certain jackets or coats or whatever. So I may not be using them in this season, but they might be useful for another season. So that's something that you always have to keep in mind. If you live somewhere where there's really only one season, you probably don't need seasonal clothes, and don't need to be keeping a big closet for if it ever snows. So yes, so are they useful? Do they fit? I think that's a problem for a lot of us women. We keep clothes that we think, I'm gonna wear this someday, you know, when I'm skinnier or whatever. Like, we have all these clothes that we're keeping for someday, but they sit in our closet and we never really use them. So for me, I decided a couple years ago, I'm not going to keep those clothes anymore. If they don't fit me right, they don't need to be hanging around here. Someone else can make use of those, and I will give them away to someone else that will fit in that particular size. The other question is, do I really like them? Like, if you're keeping clothes in your closet and they are not useful, or you do not really like them, do not keep them in your closet, because they're just taking up extra space. If you don't like them, you're not going to wear them. So it's just going to hang in your closet or sit on your shelf, and it's never going to be useful. So that's my clothing process as I go through. And the thing I found with having less clothing and having a decluttered closet is that it's so much easier to get up in the morning and get dressed, because I don't have like a million choices to choose from. I have this top, and this top goes with this pants, and like, super easy. I don't have to sit there and spend my morning trying to figure out what I'm going to wear when I've got, okay, this is what I'm going to wear, because this is what I have to choose from. It makes that whole morning decision process and morning routines go a lot faster if you don't have so much stuff in your closet. So yeah, if you want to start with a small section, or maybe yours is a big section, in your house with decluttering today, maybe start with the closet. It might be a good place for you to start. Okay, so the other question that I had was, how does decluttering improve your life? So there's a lot of parts to this question, I think, and I wrote an article about it a while ago. When we cleaned out to move back across the state, we cleaned out over 75% of our stuff, probably more than that. It was horrible how much stuff we had accumulated while we had lived in the house. The house was a little bit bigger, and so I think that we ended up just being like, oh, I need to, put something in this space, because otherwise it looks empty. I had gotten into that mindset, even though we like to simplify and we like to not have very much stuff. I'd gotten into that mindset where it's like, I need something for this space, and this looks good here, or whatever. And when we were cleaning out to move and thinking, okay, I can only take the stuff that I can fit in our camper and in this small trailer, because we bought a small enclosed trailer to put the things that we couldn't fit in the camper. And so when I was thinking about, getting rid of things, it's like, why did I even have this in the first place? This is not even something I enjoy having. Oh, I've got a couple comments that say that you lost me. I'm not sure, it's still coming up for me, so if you're having trouble, let me know. Not sure if it popped off or what, but anyway, so yes, so I'm cleaning out stuff and thinking, why did I even have this in the first place? I don't like it. It was just something filler that was taking up all this space in my house. So it was pretty easy to, it seems crazy, but it was actually pretty easy to go from all of this stuff to getting rid of, over 75% of what we had. Because we had so much stuff in our house that wasn't useful, that we weren't, using, that we didn't even like. So that was pretty easy. And then after moving into the camper, I never even used the stuff that we put in our trailer because I couldn't get into the trailer like on a regular basis. We only used what we actually had in our camper. So now that we are in this house, and I have been unpacking all of our stuff, I would say more than half of what I had packed in that trailer has gone in the get rid of pile. And we're just gonna donate what's there because I didn't use it. It wasn't actually as useful as I thought it was. What I found since getting rid of all of this stuff, I mean, and it was a very large amount of stuff. I feel like it was a very large amount of stuff. Was that once it's gone, you have this crazy sense of freedom that you didn't realize that you could have before. Before I would be stressed out about, okay, today we have to clean the house and it's such a mess and there's stuff here and there's stuff there and all of that stuff. Even though we probably didn't have as much stuff as maybe the average American, I still felt that stress about having too much stuff. And after it was gone, it was like, oh, it only takes us like 10 minutes now to clean the whole house because that clutter just isn't there. And if the clutter isn't there, it can't scatter all over my house. Thanks to my children mostly, but it can't scatter. So it's this crazy sense of freedom, and I don't know that you get it until you get that stuff out of your life, and it's like, okay, now I don't have to worry about, I'm not worrying about keeping up with the Joneses, because I'm probably not going to keep the latest and the greatest, and I'm not worried about having too much stuff where my cupboards are overflowing because I cleaned out and now I only have what's actually useful to me. It's crazy. You should try it. I'm not quite sure how else to explain except that it's just this sense of freedom once you get it all out and get it down to where you want it to be. The other thing is, and this is awesome, is that it makes your house so much easier to clean. There is not this huge mess of stuff. Like I said, the clutter doesn't travel because there's not a lot of clutter anymore. So it makes like cleaning time not even cut in half, cut less than that. Like I said, now in the evening when we are getting ready to clean, it will take us 10 minutes to clean this entire house. And that is not just because we've just moved in, it's because we just don't have the stuff to clean up. It's not, it takes my kids about 5 minutes to clean their rooms because they don't have a ton of toy clutter. And then overall it takes us about 10 minutes to clean the entire house. So I don't know about you, but I don't want to waste my time cleaning. I don't mind cleaning. It's not a chore that I absolutely hate, but I have better things to do in my life than to be constantly cleaning my house, cleaning up after people, all that kind of stuff. Dusting, I hate dusting. That's why I hate having little knickknacks, because I hate having to dust them. But when you don't have the stuff, you don't have to clean it up. You don't have to dust it, and it will take you so much less time. So like if right now, I'm just gonna, not that it takes you an hour to clean your house, but right now if it takes you an hour to clean your house, if you could do that in 10 minutes, like what could you do in your day with that extra 50 minutes of time that you don't have to spend cleaning? That's just kind of a thought that hopefully will go through your mind today. Like what can you do with this extra time that you don't have to spend cleaning and decluttering? Like once it's done, it's just done. Oh, someone asked, how do I deal with the clutter with the kids' toys? So we have 3 kids, and we homeschool also. I have one cupboard where I keep all of the homeschool supplies, and that includes all of our arts and crafts supplies and everything. It's just one wardrobe. It's got a couple drawers and a couple shelves. You can't quite see it because it's over here. I keep everything in there. I used to have a ton of homeschool supplies when we first started last year. Every single art supply that you could possibly want. And then as we were doing school throughout the year, it was like, oh, we never used any, like half of this stuff. So I cleaned it out, pared it down to really only what we're using. And I also stopped buying like so much at one time. Like I was really big into buying stuff from the back to school sales and stuff. It's like, oh, crayons are 25 cents. Let's buy 10 packages. I have stopped doing that because we don't have room to store 10 packages, and I don't want the extra clutter of storing 10 packages. So I started, only getting what we need, only what I knew that we would use in the year, and it's down to one cupboard, which has been really nice for my sanity, and just nice that everything for school and arts and crafts and stuff is in that one cupboard. And then with my kids' stuff, like their toys, we have, my kids probably don't have as many toys as an average child or something, but they have toys that they play with. So when we clean out toys, we clean out toys at least once or twice a year. But in the beginning, when we first started cleaning out toys, we clean out, so we'd only have the toys that were actually like the imaginative toys. So something that takes them more time to play with. So at the age that my kids are at, that for us that's Legos or different style building blocks, or Hot Wheels cars. We have a lot of Hot Wheels cars. So we cleaned it down to only those things that they really can use for imaginative play. And then I took all of those items, and when we cleaned them out, we sorted them into boxes. And I have these boxes that are about, I don't know, something like this. Not a huge size tote, but just a small size box. And each thing has its own box. And when they're playing with a toy in their room, they pull out the box they want. I keep them in the closet. And they pull out the box that they want, so they can, scatter the box of Legos all over their floor or whatever. But we have a rule in our house where we only get one box out at a time. So I think we have maybe about 10 boxes of toys, different kinds of toys. So, a box of blocks, a box of Legos, a box of Hot Wheels, and I think we've got a couple other like building sets or whatever, because my oldest children are boys, so that's kind of what they're into. But I think we have a total of about 10 boxes. So each day they pull out, a different box of what they're going to play with, and then our rule is when you're done with the box, you put everything back in there, it goes back up in the closet. If you want something else down, then, the first box has to be cleaned up before we get the second box out. And they caught on to that really quickly, and it eliminates a huge amount of clutter because they're not pulling a bunch of stuff out of a toy box or whatever. And I found that, like, keeping a toy box, the kids don't play with the toys in a toy box because they're all like scattered together, and you've got one piece from one set and another piece from another set, and just kind of all kinds of things scattered together. They don't go in there and play with that. They like it when the set is together, when they've got all the blocks together, and they can go in and, oh, today I'm going to build a city with my blocks, and here's the whole box, so I can actually build a city instead of finding one or two blocks in my toy box and not feeling inspired to build. So that's kind of the system that we've set up with the toys. Like I said, I think we have about 10 different toys or sets of toys right now between our two older boys. Our youngest daughter just has one little section of toys because she just likes to play with whatever the boys are playing with. So I think we have about 10, and they are all in a box. They're not a shoe box, but I can't remember what size the box is, but it's about this big, and we keep them all up in the shelves in their closet, and they know the rule, one box at a time, and when we're done with that one, it goes back. The nice thing is like if they're playing in their individual rooms and not playing together, you know, one boy can take one of the boxes in his room and the other one can take the box in his room, and then the next day it's like they can switch or they can pick something else. Either way, it seems to work really good for us so far. I'm sure, you know, things change every year as the kids get into different toys and stuff like that, but this is what's working right now. So that's kind of how we deal with the kids' clutter, is they just don't have a lot of clutter, and they, you know, learn a couple little rules that make it really simple. So that was all the questions I had written down. I'm just going to quick scroll through the comments and see if there was any questions in here that I can answer for you guys. Otherwise, you know, leave a question, and if you are watching this later, I will leave this up on the page so you can watch the replays. Put a question in there and I will get to it later. Let's see. Someone asked, what if you don't have closets? So, not at our last house, but 2 houses ago, we had a house with no closets because it was really old and it was built before they started putting closets in the house. So we had no closets in that house. For that house, my husband built a very small pantry, and we used that to organize all of like our pantry goods and stuff like that. I had all of my food in there, as well as all of my, you know, canning supplies and things like that. And then for the kids stuff, for the kids stuff, we didn't have a closet like now. We put those boxes in our closet. I did have, let's see, I think I had a toy box in there, but we still had the boxes and we put them in the toy box. So they were put away without being out in the open, but we still had it separated. And then for our clothes, because not having a closet for your clothes can be a challenge, we had, let's see, I did have a dresser in our room, and then I used just one of those cheap bookshelves, and we pretty much folded most of our clothes. And after a while, my husband did build a closet in our room, so we had enough room for hanging things, but there was only the one closet. So we hung the whole family stuff in just that one closet. And that's kind of how we dealt with not having a lot of closet space. Using external closet space, basically. So using the different bookshelves, or I really like a bookshelf and then those fabric drawers. That's actually what we used in our camper to organize a lot of our clothes, was those little fabric drawers. And actually, since we've moved in this house, I have not bought any dressers. We are still using the same system that we use in the camper. I have all the kids' stuff in fabric drawers. They have one of those little fabric bins. I'm not sure what they're called. One of those little fabric boxes. They pop up. And we have different sections. So they have one of the little fabric drawers for shirts, and one for pants, and one for pajamas. And there's a couple shelves in their closet, and that's what we're using to put all their clothes in. So I didn't even buy dressers here because it wasn't necessary. But yeah, houses without closets, I would use external things, you know, for storage, like a bookshelf, or using the drawers or things like that. I used to have, in that house that did not have any closets, I got some shelves from IKEA. They were tall and white and had like glass doors or whatever, and I used those to put in all of our books and all of our school supplies and art supplies and things like that, and those worked out pretty good. So hopefully that helps a little bit. I think, see if there's any more questions here. Someone asked if do I have a routine to keep the clutter down? I find that if I declutter and a couple months later it needs a whole new declutter. I think that is normal. I don't know if, I don't really have a set time that I declutter. I kind of always feel like I need to declutter in the spring and then always need to declutter in the fall. I don't know if it's just like built in my brain, spring cleaning, fall cleaning or something. That's kind of when I do a big declutter, and that's mostly based around at that time of year I'm either getting out our winter clothes or summer clothes or however that works, and so it kind of inspires me to do a bigger declutter. But I don't really have a routine. Basically, I just kind of, go about daily life, and if I look in something and think, boy, I am getting way too much stuff in my bathroom right now, I will plan a day for that week and just go through the whole bathroom and clean it out. So just kind of as life goes on, because your whole house isn't generally going to get all cluttered up all at once. It's going to be one room, which works good if you're using that section or room by room method of decluttering, is kind of how we can mentally work on that. So let's see. Oh, Susan asked if we were going to stay in this house. We're going to stay in this house for now. We like it here so far. We actually live right next door to my parents, so we are right next to Grandma and Grandpa, which the kids love, and we don't have any intention of moving at the moment. But if I've learned anything in the last 11 years of being married, it's just, you just kind of have to go with the flow. So if things change in a couple years and something comes up, I wouldn't say that we're never going to move again, but right now we're pretty happy here. So I don't know if that answers your question, but this is where we're staying for now. With how fast kids grow, how do we keep their seasonal clothes from year to year? Let's see. So my kids grow fast, and they also trash their clothing. So I don't know if that's just having boys or my boys or what, but basically I just kind of follow the same plan year after year. So in the summer, I buy all the clothes for the next year. I do a lot of shopping at rummage sales, and so I get all the clothes that they're going to, in the next size up, that they're going to wear for the next year. And I really only have to do that for my oldest, unless the middle one needs something else. So I'll buy the next clothes up for the oldest boy, and I'll put them away until next year. And then each year we just kind of rotate, through the things. I keep a winter box and a summer box of each size, or I use the Rubbermaid totes. We don't have a ton of clothes in each size. We've cleaned out the kids' clothing, so they don't have a lot. And we have certain clothes for, this is clothes that you wear to town, and this is clothes that you can wear outside, so we're not trashing all of our clothes. So that's kind of, I don't know, that's how our system is and how we organize. So I always have the clothes for the next year, and then depending on what season it is, I've got either the winter clothes or the summer clothes in the same size put away, and then pull them out. But I keep them in those big, the Rubbermaid, the heavy-duty Rubbermaid totes, and they keep those up in their, now they keep them up in their closets. We kept them out in the garage before, but that's how we keep them in the closets now. What state am I in? I am in South Dakota. I have lived here my whole life. Oh, thank you. Yes, the background, this is our dining room, and I haven't showed this on the blog yet. This is our dining room, schoolroom, and we've got a little buffet thing over here, and if you are on my Instagram, you saw I repainted that. It was an old piece of furniture that I found. We kind of have our little school corner back over there that we hang up the things that we are doing for the week, and then that chest on the floor is actually where we keep all of our board games. I posted on the blog a couple years ago that we cleaned out all of our board games, and I got rid of all of the boxes. Seriously, we have a lot of board games, but I cleaned out, I think, 10 garbage bags, huge garbage bags, full of just the boxes. And you know, the cardboard inserts and all that stuff from the games that you don't actually need. And when I posted that a couple of years ago, people were like, oh, you're going to regret doing that. Well, it's been, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now since we did that. There is not one day that's gone by where I've regretted getting rid of the boxes. So we still have all the games. I took all the pieces and put them in the big Ziploc bags. And I have just a stack of, if they had a board, you know, if it was a board game. Otherwise, all the pieces or cards or whatever go in a labeled bag for what it is. The instructions are in there just in case we need them. And it takes up, well, I mean, everything is in that chest, and we still have plenty of room, and we have a lot of games. So that was one thing that I do not ever regret doing, was getting rid of those boxes. There was so much garbage, and it was taking up so much space because I had to store all of those boxes, and we enjoyed playing the games, but you know, the boxes are huge and they're bulky and then they break and they're just kind of a mess. So that was one thing that we decluttered a couple years ago, and it was pretty awesome. So all right, so if anybody has any more questions, stick them in the comments now, and I will get to them. Otherwise, if you're watching this later, when it's replaying, I will try to get to your questions later. Yes, Susan, my parents are glad to have us so close, and the kids love it because they can walk to Grandma's house now. I mean, before it was a 5-hour drive, so it's been pretty nice. Do I use the vacuum storage bags? I don't. I tried to use them like a long time ago, and I could never get them to work. So I don't know if their technology is more improved now than when I tried them before, but I don't know. Maybe I just, you know, user error or something, probably. So. All right, well, if there isn't any more questions, I'm gonna go hop off. Like I said, go ahead and leave your questions in the comments, and I will try to answer them as the day goes on. And, oh, there's one more. How have I tamed the kids' art and craft supplies? If you weren't on here a little bit ago, I mentioned I've got a thing, and it's right over there. Maybe I can show it next time. But I have it's just like a wardrobe that I bought. It has 2 drawers and a couple shelves, and we keep all of the arts and crafts supplies and all of our homeschooling supplies in there. It's not a big space, but like I mentioned before, I have stopped buying so much arts and crafts supplies in bulk like I was doing before, and kind of tried to stick to more, okay, we're gonna actually use this week or this month, or like I know that we go through this many boxes of crayons in a school year or something like that. And that's kind of how I've tamed that, because I had a lot of school supplies and a lot of art supplies before I started doing that little method. But all right, so I've been on here for a while, I feel like. So I am going to jump off, but it was nice getting to chat with you today. Like I said, if you have any questions, comments, leave them in the comment section. Send me a message. If you need some inspiration or some encouragement to get your house decluttered, I am here. You know where to find me, and I will talk to you guys later. See ya.